Welcome back to Studio 44 and our show Underdogs. Today, I have a special guest, Ocala celebrity, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Kevin Sheilley with the Ocala Metro CP. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I don't know that I've ever quite had an introduction like that. So.
Well, I'm excited you're in the room because everybody gets to see you. You're at the forefront of a ton of events. We got groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings and, I mean, you name it.
And at 6'6", it's hard to hide. So
it is. Well, I can imagine. I can only imagine because, yeah, I got the opposite problem there. But do people know Kevin? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's only a certain amount of people that we let in, that we share some of our stories with and all that. So I'm really, really looking forward today to mostly just get to know you. So where are you from originally? Where were you born?
Yeah, so I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. And if you're from there, then you say Louisville. For others, it's Louisville. But I grew up in Louisville. In a portion of the community, where you're from in Louisville matters when you're there. People want to know. So I grew up in Windsor Forest.
Windsor Forest.
Windsor
Forest.
Like the Queen.
Gotcha. And where is that in relation? Not you're going to have to forgive me, but where is that in relation to Churchill Downs?
Sure. So Churchill Downs is kind of right in town. It might be considered South Central barely. I lived in far southwest Jefferson County, Louisville. So if you were to come in on I-65, as soon as you get into Jefferson County, you notice there's some what we call our knobs, low rolling hills. And I grew up, Windsor Forest is on top of one of those hills.
Gotcha. I recently visited Louisville.
Mm-hmm. That's very good.
Close.
You got to say it like you've got a little bourbon in your mouth and you don't want it to spill out. So
gotcha. Louisville. Okay, we'll get there before we're done. Regardless, when I was there, I was noticing a lot of change, a lot of growth. Every tour we took, every place we met, there was a lot of distilleries. Mm-hmm. I mean, I tasted some amazing, and I'm not a bourbon guy. I am a Moscow Mule religiously. Like that's my drink. And but we did several bourbon tasting, and it was just a good time. But so much growth in the city, and a lot of community based events. So it was very, very neat to see. They said that they went through kind of a hard time coming out of COVID.
Right.
You know, I'd imagine a lot of bigger cities struggle with that. But what was your favorite part about growing up in that area?
Oh man, I love growing up in Louisville. I'm proud from Kentucky. I'm even more proud to be a Louisvillian. And Kentuckians and Louisvillians don't always get along with each other. But where we grew up, great neighborhood in the hills. Louisville's very about neighborhoods. It is very neighborhood centric, and loved my area. Loved our family. I'm the third of four kids, and all of our family was there, friends, and our church. Everything in our world revolved there, and it was a great place to grow up.
So when you say third out of four, how does that fit in the lineup?
Yeah, so it is interesting. I am third, technically. I am 5 minutes older than my twin sister.
Yes.
But there's no mistaking in our family when everyone recognizes that Holly is the baby and I am simply another. We have a sister who's 15 years older and a brother who's 10 years older. And then 10 years later, we were a significant late life surprise for my parents.
Gotcha. So even though it's only by 5 minutes, you're still a middle child.
Oh, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you think that affected you growing up? Like, did they always? Do you have the same middle child experience that most people do?
I will share this, and this will be. I think my wife will share it with people, and they're stunned to hear this. When we look at the four Sheilley kids, I'm the quiet, unassuming one. Most people would not get that from me, but. I had an older sister who was firstborn. My brother was the firstborn in my mom's family since my grandfather. He was the high holy child. My twin sister was the baby, and my twin sister and my brother were super athletes, all state athletes and all that. And I was that other kid that was there. And that was good, and that was fun. I did my thing, but I was always just that other kind of that middle kid that they weren't really sure at times what to do with.
Now, let's go back to like elementary, middle, and high school in that range. Did you play sports?
I did. Again, my dad was a great athlete. My brother was all-state football player. My sister, volleyball, basketball, and softball, my twin sister. And so I played basketball. Ended up being 6'6" from Kentucky. Of course, I played basketball, and I enjoy basketball. I never loved playing basketball. I played tennis, played in the state tennis tournament, enjoyed that. But what I really loved was volleyball. At that point in time, there weren't a lot of opportunities for guys in volleyball, especially in Kentucky. I did get to play travel club team in college, but that was always what I enjoyed the most.
So if I could choose anything to change in my lifetime, it would have been being closer to 6'6", so that I could play volleyball. I love volleyball.
Yeah.
My preferred is beach,
Okay.
just because I love diving for the ball. I don't know at 6'6" how much you like diving into the sand, but it's a shorter fall for me, if that makes sense.
Understood.
You know what I'm
Understood. I don't mind that. I enjoy beach. I was on vacation a couple months ago. We were at down in the Dominican Republic and played a lot of beach volleyball while we were there. But the indoor game's a little bit more my speed. But
So we got to play last or 2 months ago now for one of the Pop City Pickleball events. Your first time playing pickleball. Yep. And let me tell you, the height and the reach game is amazing. Now, do you also play very good on like table tennis?
I do. Again, you got a wingspan like a pterodactyl. You can reach things. The downside is you lack the speed. So when that ball's coming at you, I got a lot of arm to move to get that paddle back in front of me. But in particular, that was my in tennis doubles, being able to go up to the net and just to own a wide bit of real estate.
Yeah, I was going to say, at the tennis court, it would be extremely dominating. People would be afraid to lob you. Because
if you're going to lob, you're going to have to go really high.
Yeah.
Which was great for my partner because he knew it's either going to go really wide or really high.
Yeah. So very, very good. I like that because a lot of people that come from a sports background tend to have that competitive nature. So how did you relay that competitive nature after high school? Like, what did life look like then?
So I went to college. I went to Union University in Tennessee. Loved, great place, a great place for me. I went, before I graduated, I started working for a statewide political campaign. So you can see if you're really involved in campaigns, there's a competitive nature there. Mm-hmm. Enjoyed that a lot. Had kind of said, okay, this is my candidate's going to win governor, and that's going to be my ticket, and I'm going to, get this position, and that's just part of how that game works. However, my candidate won the primary, and we all knew he was going to lose the general election. It just wasn't his year. He later got elected governor and was phenomenal, but that was not his year. And I was like, man, I'm going to need a job. And that's when I got my foray into chamber world. I got a call from a professor at college who said, hey, the chamber here is looking for a communications director. Are you interested? And I was like, does it pay money? Yes, I'm interested. and so, uniquely in our industry, I've been doing this next month will mark 29 years. And so for me, that competitive piece becomes, I always think wherever community I'm in, that's the best community. And I want to see it win. I want to see the people that live there win. I want to see the businesses there win. And while I don't believe it's one wins and everybody loses, I want to make sure my community gets its fair share. That it's a place where people can find wins and they can find those opportunities.
So that brings up a word and a phrase that we like to say often is community champion. What do you define as a community champion, and how do you fit that role?
Yeah. Here, what I would say is just simply a community champion is somebody who's like, hey, Ocala is a great place to be. And we can, not that it doesn't have problems or challenges or issues, but a community champion is like, here's how we overcome those. Here's how we're going to solve this problem, overcome this issue to make it a great place. Obviously, you are a community champion. You are a great storyteller for what's going on in this community, finding new opportunities, new things to do. And that's really what I think a community champion is someone who says, hey, this is a great community, and I'm going to do my piece to make it even better.
I think it's a very interesting conversation too, because there's so many people that come from small town USA that have a lot of pride from where they come from. When someone asks me where I'm from, I say third floor Monroe. So there's a lot of people right now that are finally, in my opinion, coming around to getting out of calling Ocala slow Cala. Like, I cringe when I hear that word, because especially from here, we want to see it flourish. We want to see it grow. EJ uses the word grow Cala.
We use that one as well.
And that
I like
we are now entering into new Cala. That the community itself it feels like it's coming together like never before. What do you see Ocala as in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think one of the biggest differences, one of the things that's happened in the last decade that has really spurred this sense of grow Cala or go Cala, we also use, is a recognition of who we were. To me, it's funny that anyone today would describe Ocala as a small town. We're a community of more than 400,000 people. Maybe in Florida that makes us small, but anywhere else in this country, that makes us, again, one of the largest metropolitan areas in the U.S. and one of the fastest growing. I think as we began embracing, wait a minute, this is really who we are. We're not some little small town. We're a fast-growing metro. I think that began to change people's perceptions and the idea that, hey, this can be more, we can have this vibrant downtown. We can do these other things. We can have our springs and our horse farms and all the pieces. I think over the next 3 to 5 years, I don't see that changing. In fact, I see the speed maintaining. And I know that's scary for some people. There's been so much change, in particular in the last 3 years, that people get a little, I'm used to this, or I'm used to that, and now it's different, and I don't think I like it. Because all in all, people generally don't like change. But even when it's good change. But I think what we're going to continue to see is, downtown is going to be so amazing in the next 3 years. Some of the stuff that's all coming through the pipeline now, downtown's going to be phenomenal. And that becomes what makes our community different. That's the heartbeat. And as that gets more and more vibrant, I think we see that leads to additional things happening. And you've got everything out at the World Equestrian Center and how that radiates out. And some phenomenal industrial growth and housing growth in the Southwest and the Southeast. So you see all these great pieces. If we could figure out Silver Springs and really get something significant happening there, look out, because I think that may very well be the linchpin that puts us over.
Absolutely. My vote is for Chick-fil-A. You bring me a Chick-fil-A to Silver Springs, and it's a winner. We're doing business. Many times, people, when they first meet you, the first thing they ask you is, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Instead of who you are, instead of why you do what you do. So I want to know more of the back end. We know what you do here in Ocala, but what do you do when you're not working?
I'm working. No, it is one of the things I love about my job is it is not a 9 to 5 job. There are evening things, there are weekend things, there are morning things. I count myself fortunate that there's a lot of those things that are events that people invite me. I'm glad 10 years in, they still want me to come. It's when they stop inviting me that I get concerned. But, I do. The job is a big piece of it all the time. I have 3 kids. They're all grown, which makes me feel really old when I say things like that. But, where I can spend time with our adult kids, I enjoy that. I have a 5-year-old grandson. Which is always exciting. Love to see him and love to see him go. But 5 years old is a lot of energy.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of energy. You mentioned pickleball. Pickleball, where I can do that. I'm very religious. I'm at the gym Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday morning, every morning at 5:30. I'm pretty consistent with that. And then probably the other big consistent in our world is our church. We're real active at Church of Hope and being engaged and involved there.
That's awesome. I always like to learn a little bit more about what people do outside because we can relate. Yeah. There's many things. There's a lot of, especially competitive natured people. I've been an athlete my whole life. I've competed against someone for something for a very long time. So it's also hard to shut down.
Yeah.
And it's hard to not overwork, and also hard to not just kind of put the night or the evening on cruise control and just let it be what it is, instead of, oh, I've got those tasks, or I have that list, or I've got those things, because you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
That's hard to avoid.
And the other piece is I'll be reading something or looking at something, and an idea pops up. I mean, all the time. And I'm like, oh, that's really, my wife inevitably is like, oh, are you working? I was like, but I just had this idea. I got to write it down before I forget. I send myself so many emails. It is ridiculous. But hey, I want to get this. Oh man, I just saw this. Let me send this. And I'm talking with my hand. So now I've hit the microphone and the table and the cords and everything else. But, but if you love what you do, I'm okay with that.
I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss. Like, they always tell you, find what you're passionate about. You'll never work a day and all that stuff. Like, I have my own view on that part, but mostly, like, when you truly love it,
yeah,
it doesn't feel like you're working. So, I find myself catching myself and saying, you know what, today I am going to take off. And then I'll make those little notes the same way. Now, I've never emailed myself. That's a unique one. That's the first time I've ever heard that part. But
really? Oh yeah, I email myself all the time. I've done it today.
My notes section in my phone, however, is full. Especially ideas, inventions, things I want to accomplish. So many times I feel like there's not enough hours in the day. Yeah. So what do you do personally to kind of combat the hours in the day?
I have no idea. Again, I think that exercise in the morning, man, when I started that several years ago, that really was game changing for me. That gets my whole day off to the right start, gets my mind and body moving right. I do try to read every night. And I mix up what I'm reading. Read a lot of history, usually political or something along that way. But I'll read something fun. I try to mix in some good nonfiction or fiction in there, and then I try to do some leadership stuff, but it starts to all sound alike after a while. So.
It does. There is a point where you can consume too much, and then you start hearing everybody saying the same message. Right. Yeah. So I get it. I definitely do. I like to keep my motivational stuff. I've got an Instagram called 18 Second Thoughts, and it has to be 18 seconds or less, because of people's attention spans, et cetera, but more importantly, so it's in bite-sized pieces, and I want it to be unique content. So there's a lot of times people look at leaders for inspiration and motivation. So the fact that you are that consistent at the gym to get the day going, to stay motivated, it doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean that you don't...
what? I don't understand what you're saying.
Oh, no. It's what's today? It's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, we don't have to be perfect on Tuesday. Just on Wednesday through Monday. What brought you to Ocala? What does that story look like?
So, again, I mentioned that, early on I got involved in the chamber world. By the time I was 24, I was leading my own economic development organization. Had kind of, over the next several years, became the guy who helped start or merge chamber economic development organizations, and was very blessed with some great success each step of the way. Really, really great stories along the way, and Campbellsville comeback and some different ones. And so my wife and I, we were in Henderson, Kentucky. I had started up, I'd merged 6 economic development entities into one, 4 counties, 16 cities, and into a lead entity, and had kind of, I'd done what I can do. It was time for someone else. I was ready to look for my next adventure. We'd been there 7 years, and we're kind of looking around, and a friend sent me this job posting. He said, hey, I think this might be something in which you would have interest. And it was the Ocalacep. The Chamber and Economic Development Council was being merged, and they had these plans, and so kind of looked at it and said, yeah, that looks of interest. I need to. So I threw my name in and did it wasn't Zoom, because we don't know that we had Zoom quite back then. Maybe we did,
Skype.
But yeah. But it was a pre-recorded video interview, and so these questions would pop up. You'd have 30 seconds to think about your answer, and then it would record your answer.
Wow.
And you had, I think, 3 minutes or something to answer, and then when it's done, you'd hit a button, and then it'd give you a moment, and then another question would pop up. And so I did this. It was kind of weird. It was kind of cool. Again, this was 2012. Did this interview process, sent it in, and after a while, I got a call. Hey, we'd really love to talk to you. Love to come down. And I came and met with the committee. And I have such tremendous respect for the team that led the merger here. I'm going to give a talk later this week to an outside group. And part of what I'm talking about is, man, these were leaders. They saw what others couldn't see. And they risked. They took the risk to make something happen that they thought were in the best interest of our community. And great, intelligent, successful business people. They didn't have a clue in the world how to run a chamber economic development organization. We interviewed all day. It was great. If you want to make an impression, I flew into Gainesville and they drove me straight to Golden Ocala. If you want to make an impression of someone about what a community is like, that's a pretty good one to make. And that night, I called my wife before we went to dinner and I told her, I was telling her about it. I said, these people need me. They need me. Because they understood what needed to happen. They just didn't know how to make that happen. And that's a skill I developed. And so, for me, Ocala was about the chance to build the right kind of entity, the structure that I felt was most appropriate in a community that I felt like had tremendous opportunity that perhaps it didn't even realize how much opportunity it had.
Yeah. And I would say that the change over the last 11 years has been drastic. So I'm very glad that you chose to come. I'm glad for the initiatives and the people that you put into place in those certain roles to continue helping grow. What did the CP look like then, number-wise? Like how many businesses?
Yeah.
Because I've been in business a long time, but we were never part of the chamber because we didn't have what we have now.
Yeah.
So what did that look like?
So the merger was done in October of 2012. I started in December. And I'm going to answer that question by telling you about a phone call I got 2 weeks or so before I started. I got a call from the chairman of the board here. And I was still in Kentucky. I'd given my notice. Our house was on the market. I was making plans to come down. And he said, hey, I just want to let you know we had to have an emergency executive committee today meeting, but everything's okay. Everything's okay. But the bank has called the mortgage on the building. The credit cards are maxed out. The line of credit's maxed out. And we have $267 in the bank account. We've moved over the last of the money from the merger. We should be good till January. I'm moving here to start a job December the 3rd. I have a family, and this is the situation that I get. I didn't tell my wife that story for 8 years.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. She was like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, because what would you have done? She goes, I would have freaked out. Exactly. That's why I didn't tell you. But the chamber at the time of the merger had, I think, around 900 members. Obviously, we didn't have any money. And had just started the power plant. That had happened in the middle of the merger. So they had that lease on the main building at the power plant. And was begin building that business creation initiative.
So there's been big changes in that time frame.
Thankfully.
How, thank God. Yeah, because how in the world do you move all the way from Henderson to here if there's no money, how do you get paid, right?
Yeah. It was, I look back now and think, man, I was an idiot. I had full faith. Doug Cohn was the chairman of the board. Doug is the one who really drove the merger. I had faith that he was going to help make this happen. I had faith that this was a community that just had assets it didn't realize, and then the timing was going to be right. I can't tell you why. It was a gut, in which I hate making gut decisions, but it was a gut, and it was correct. And at that point, I didn't have any other choice. I'd already given my notice. I had done all the things. This is where it needed to be. But I have to tell you, the first 7 months were some long months. I can remember being, winter, it gets dark early, being at the chamber at that point. There were 5 employees, including myself, and looking at the bills and going, okay, all right, we can get by without paying this one this month. We'll pay this one, pay a portion of this one. The other piece, and I was thinking about this too the other day, the team that had led the merger, it was contentious. and looking back, I love when people say, man, I can't imagine why anyone would think this was not the right way to go. But at the time, it was very contentious. And the fourth day I was here, I met with the executive committee and was kind of outlining, here's what we're going to do over the next year. Here's how I'm seeing this. And by the end of this year, we'll have a new strategic plan and blah, blah, blah. And one of those members looked at me and sincerely as possible said, you don't understand. If this isn't successful, we all have to move. We can't stay here. We're going to have to move. You've got to get moving and get moving today. We don't have a year to plan this out. All right. So we backed up. That was December. By the end of January, we had a new strategic plan. We rolled it out at the first CEP annual luncheon under the tent at the Hilton. And we began implementing. And one of the funny things is, but to do that plan, to do these things that we said we were going to do, it took people. I had to start hiring people. So as quick as we were generating revenue, I was adding payroll, which, we warn businesses all the time, be careful if you do that. But
Yes.
The only way for us to grow to the point to sustainability was to go ahead and start hiring those people. So that we went from the beginning with 5 people. I think at the end of the year we had 12. And today we have 32.
Wow. So I'm a firm believer that God's got your back and
Yep.
that He's already directed your steps. So taking that gut feeling, I would say that's a God feeling, especially for you to follow through with it. Like you knew that no matter what, He'd be taking care of you.
Yep.
You didn't know how,
Right.
but you had that feeling that it gives you that says, you know what? Yeah, let's go.
Exactly.
So I absolutely love hearing that that's how it happened, because most people just look at the numbers now. You have a lot of new partners that are coming on that may be introduced to Exceptional Mornings or Business After Hours, or the annual luncheon is amazing. I mean, last year, we're not your normal chamber.
Right.
Okay, we had circus people. There was like there was fire
Yep.
and craziness. It was amazing. But I believe that they look at where we're at now and assume that it was just all handed. Like it's too successful. It just someone had to sign that off on a silver plate or something, and they don't realize the journey that it took to get to this point. Like I can imagine how many late nights, how many moments of what do we do now?
Yeah.
Right. So,
But isn't that the ultimate compliment, that you do things to a degree, and when I say we, in this case, absolutely our team, that people think it's easy. They think it must have been easy. That means that we're performing really, really well. When we won Chamber of the Year, National Chamber of the Year in 2020, and we at an Exceptional Mornings Breakfast, we told the story, had some of those early board members who led to the merger on stage and talking. And I remember one of our CEOs who was new to the community since that time goes, man, I can't imagine that there ever not being a CEP. I mean, that it could only be 8 years old. Wow, that's amazing to me. And I think that's a huge compliment.
I think it's interesting when people, they try to imitate what you do, to try to, like they say, imitation is the highest form of flattery. At the same time, sometimes it's a little funny because it's like, we had that idea, or we did that first, or like we made it to that level of success that it is. And then to watch other people try, but assuming that they knew all the things that it took to get there, and realizing very quickly, oh, okay, so this is hard, or this is maybe we should back up a few steps. So, well, I wanna end on an inspirational or motivational moment. What is something that inspires or motivates you on a daily basis?
Man, I'll tell you, and I mean this with complete sincerity. It kind of goes back to something we talked about earlier about community champion. I think I'm blessed, and I tell our team all the time, I want them to understand how important their job is. I love nurses and doctors and firefighters and police officers and teachers. Those are all key, and I'm so thankful for the people who do that work, who get the education and the training to do that. They're so important. But I absolutely believe that we have the most important jobs in our community, that if we're not doing our job, there's not going to be the tax revenue. to pay those first responders. If we're not doing our job, the people aren't going to be moving here. We're not going to need the teachers. We're not going to need the healthcare providers. We're not going to have the revenue to support those things. And so that what we do enables everything else. And knowing the difference that every time we bring in a new company, and I'll throw this out here, we've got several we're getting ready to announce here shortly, but we bring in a new company. That's going to be a job for someone that's going to change their family's life. Every time we help an entrepreneur move forward and make their dream a reality, we've changed a family's life. Every time we help an existing company not leave here but stay here and grow and thrive, we've changed the companies. We've changed an individual's life. And that, to me, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Man, what a privilege. And if that can't get you motivated every day to want to go to work, to know that you're really making a difference in your community, not just for the day, but quite frankly, for families and for a lifetime, I'm very fortunate to get to do what I do.
Absolutely love it. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Of course.
Sharing just a little piece of your underdog story. I love your passion for Ocala and the beauty and the growth here. We're raising our families here. We're growing our brands here. EJ and me, we like to use this saying is locally based, globally minded. We can be rooted in Ocala, Florida, of all places, and be selling to the entire world. So, proud to have you on the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to our underdog story with Kevin Sheilley today. And remember that love wins, period.